This Choircast podcast is brought to you by the book Sitting in the Shade of Another Tree. For too long, people of faith have focused more on pointing out where other religions get it wrong. But what if we decided to focus more on all the ways those other religions get it right? This path might end up leading us into deeper understanding, connection, friendship, and peace. Sitting in the Shade of Another Tree, from Choir Publishing and Pathos, available now on Amazon.
Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? Damn. You've joined us for our first Drinks and Deconstruction episode where we talk to somebody about their journey of deconstruction from the beginning through right now and maybe charting a path forward. And right now we've got Michele. Michele, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You've been part of our community for a while on Discord and TikTok and all those places. And I'm just grateful that you are able to feel like you can be transparent enough to share your story so that other people can find, I don't know, resonance with it, find their own place within your story. I know that for me, sometimes it takes hearing somebody else's story to be able to process my own. And so I want to thank you for that. And, I feel like what I'd like to start with is just saying, what works for you right now? I mean, you don't have to give us everything that works, but like spiritual beliefs wise, what spiritual beliefs or practices or whatever feel like, I don't know about everything, but this one thing or two things feel like they fit right now.
If Jesus said these words, he says, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. If he said that, that is what I'm going by. If he didn't say that, that's what I'm going by. Love other people. That's what it boils down to. My favorite author is Terry Pratchett, and there's a witch in there who says, sin is treating other people as things. And that resonated with me. I'm like, oh my God, treating other people as things.
Yeah.
If I don't treat people as things, then I'm doing okay. I'm loving them. So that's where I would say my core beliefs are right now. Not treating other people as things.
I love that. I love the idea of like that as the seed for everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So COVID hit and all the churches shut down and my local churches started doing weird ass things. And I'm like, I'm all done. Okay. I'm done. And that's
is that sort of when it started unraveling for you, like Christianity, or did it start before then? Like where
it started before then. I forget the exact year. My husband has had multiple myeloma twice now. He's gone into remission both times. The first time he got multiple myeloma, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Church people, we lived in Massachusetts, came out, supported us and everything. Then we moved to Maine. It was great. Then he got it again. And he got it during COVID.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, what the fuck, God?
Yeah.
Excuse my French.
No,
what
no
the
excuse
fuck?
needed. Yeah.
And I got very angry that, and I understand everybody has things, but that was not a good time to find out that someone had gotten cancer a second time.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that shakes you. That shakes you in a normal time, much. Right?
Yeah. It shook me when it happened previously. And then it was like, the world is exploding and he has cancer again. And I've always negated my own experience. Somebody else has it worse than I do.
Right.
And that was like, I can't. I can't. This is this is mind blowing. So
right. So you said that was during COVID. Did the sort of had you already disconnected from churches? Like you said, they were doing crazy things. I'd love to know what those were. Just because I'm nosy and I like drama. But
well, the church that we had been going to, we were friends with the pastor and his wife many, many years. They moved to Colorado, and it's like that was the connection there. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit, and we're like, okay, we're not going to go back. And they shut down. It was great. The other churches in our area were like, we're not wearing masks. We're going to go out in public. We're going to meet with each other and spread germs. And they caused a mini COVID outbreak in the small town near where I live.
And I remember seeing stories. And I mean, obviously, I saw churches doing that. And I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, you are literally killing people. Right. Yes. Like not like stabbing them, but just as culpable in like being that irresponsible.
Yes. You are literally killing people. And it's germs, people. Yeah. It's germs or viruses, whatever. It's not that. It's not a demon. It's nothing like that. It is a communicable disease. Do you not understand science?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. And then you are here with a husband who is dealing with, oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah. So that was probably the break of okay. Then then you had our president, who at the time was,
oh my gosh.
Can you inject bleach? All right. I just remember that part and being like, this man's insane. And then you had people going, well, yeah, no, that's not scientific. You can have faith and still.
For sure.
Yeah. And the whole evangelical community started going insane. And I'm like, okay, I don't even identify that way anymore.
Right.
I'm like ashamed that I was ever identified as an evangelical.
Right.
I just can't go back.
Right. So is that the types of churches that you had been in leading up to the pandemic?
Yes, we went to a non-denominational church in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Still very evangelical. The church that we started going to in Maine was an Assemblies of God church, but our friend, the pastor, who's like, no, we are not an Assemblies of God church, and shut it down. All right. And they absolutely weren't. Yeah. I don't know why they identified that way. But they became non-denominational, and they still are. And I'm not knocking the place. They didn't do anything wrong.
Sure.
But yeah, it just is like, whoa, I can't do that anymore. So I started looking at other places, and and I'm like, oh, what about the Unitarian Universalists? And I'm like,
there you go, right?
I'm like, can I do this? I don't know.
That's a pretty big first step away from evangelicalism.
No,
but
like, I don't know if I should do
I mean,
that.
you do you.
And I'm like, I don't know. And then I've just seen so many different types of faith on TikTok. I've just seen so much. And it's not like I didn't see it before, but everybody.
But it is different when you are disconnecting, right? When you're in this place of like leaving, when you see those other experiences of faith, it's different. I mean, like, how could you characterize that difference? Like, how would you explain the difference in, like, I was on TikTok as an evangelical scrolling through, and then all of a sudden I wasn't, and I'm scrolling through. What was the difference between those two experiences?
Well, the thing is, I wasn't on TikTok scrolling as an evangelical. I never went on there. I think it's been a year, and I had just been disconnected for that long. And I thought, you know what? I hate Facebook. I hate all of those. I'm not Twittering. So I jumped on Twitter TikTok, and I came across you, and I'm like, and I started listening. And then my husband sends me something from, oh God, I can't even think of his name. Dan
McClellan.
Dan McClellan. And he said, you'll like this. And he said something, and I started crying because I'm like, oh my God, the Bible is not univocal.
Oh, just right.
How long have I been saying that?
Yeah.
And it isn't. And now I don't feel crazy because it's not univocal.
it's not.
That was so freeing, because I've been going, I would argue with my husband back and forth. And I said, they're not even, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Right.
And he laughs. He goes, look, I like to look at it as God starts out with people as children, and you have to tell them things 3 times and 4 times, and they learn. And then by the time he gets to the New Testament, he's kind of treating them as adults. And I'm like, no, man, he's killing babies and people in the Old Testament. This isn't right, man. No. So yeah, that was remarkably freeing. And then listening to you and hearing your experience, especially about LGBTQ issues. And short story, I have a friend I love him. I love him so much. And he's gay.
Right.
But he is sticking to the hardline evangelical line that
that's so hard.
I can't have a partner. I can't pursue that. I can't do anything. And it hurts me.
Yeah.
It hurts. And I love this guy so much. And it's his story to share. I'm not going to say anything, but I just love him. I love him so much. And it hurts me that he can't be comfortable enough in himself when he obviously didn't ask to be this way.
Right.
That started opening my eyes too. It's like, no, excuse me, I didn't choose to be heterosexual.
Right.
It's the way I'm wired. And just to have a whole community of people, marginalized is the word, and that's not the word I was going to use, but that's the one I can think of, because of who they are.
Yeah. And
that really was another thing that I can't identify as evangelical anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And what I know a number of people who that specific issue was a turning point for them, because somebody they love came out, and they had these 2 conflicting impulses or things inside of them. One was this like person that they loved, that they were going to continue loving.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah. And that's never changed with him. Loving.
Right. And then they have this belief system and these people that are trying to tell them that they shouldn't love this person, or like,
hate the sin, love the sinner.
Gosh,
such bullshit. Such bullshit.
You are right. That's exactly what it is, because that's not loving.
No, man.
Right.
That is not.
So when you were in this moment of your husband's got cancer, COVID's going on, you've got this queer friend who can't be themselves, and what the univocality thing was a big deal for you, it sounds like.
Very much so.
And what other new pieces, or were there pieces that, like, I don't know, I feel like the univocality, what I hear you saying in the univocality piece is like, it's something that you knew for a long time, and it took like seeing Dan, or, like being outside of the church and having someone sort of give you permission.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's exactly what it was. And then it's not univocal. And then I just looked at my husband, and I think Dan is Latter-day Saints, if I remember.
He comes from the Mormon tradition. Yeah.
And to hear things come from him, and I'm like, because all of those things that I had been thinking about over the years, that this doesn't make sense. And it says one thing here and it's the other. And I asked my pastor friend one day, what about this? And he goes, well, do you believe in progressive revelation? And I'm like, what? What? He he has changed over the years to reflect different things. So I think he has gone through his own deconstruction. But it made me realize I wasn't the only one questioning a belief system that was like I felt was hardwired into me.
Yeah.
And I'm still coming across stuff that I will be like, oh, no, stop.
Yeah.
Witches are fine. Leave them alone. Okay.
They're gonna be okay.
They're okay. I don't, yeah. And the whole rapture thing. Terrified.
Tell me your rapture story.
Oh my gosh. I had been indoctrinated that there's going to be this giant trumpet sound and people are going to get sucked up, and if you hear that or the trumpet sounds and you'll be left there. And one day I lived very rurally. I don't know why I thought this. I couldn't find my mother, and I'm freaking out.
No, sure.
And the anxiety of, oh my God, I'm here by myself. And to find that is something some dude made up in the 1800s. Yeah. I'm like, again, bullshit. And the idea of hell, I've always struggled with it. How can a loving, gracious God consign you for eternity to hell? What is that? No, that doesn't make any sense if you're telling me he's a loving God. So all of those things, all of these standards, there is a hell. You're going to hell. If you're this, you're that. That all started to pile on. But I think the final breaking was finding you and finding Dan and just being able to let that go and find my own way now. Right. And it's still a process.
Yeah. And I feel like, so I'm hearing rapture. That's got to go. You have no idea what's going on with hell at this point. And
well,
it sounds like LGBTQ
for a little bit of time. I'd like them to experience.
yes, there are a handful of people that if I got to choose.
Oh my God, yes. If I got to be like, you're going to be there for a bit.
Yeah, just a little while, not a lot. I don't want to be unreasonable.
Just a little while. You be there because you said these people were going. You need to be there.
Not big flames, just like coals, maybe, right?
coals, yeah, and. Yeah, I forgot you were going somewhere.
No, it's fine. So I'm trying to see, like, so we've got rapture, we've got univocality, we've got hell, we've got the LGBTQ issue.
Yes.
What other things are you sort of, I know that for me, it was like a thread on a sweater that I started pulling.
Pull.
Right.
Yes. The whole, oh my God, if I'm not a virgin when I get married, I am soiled and sullied. And I wasn't, and I dealt with the guilt for years that I wasn't pure. And that's ridiculous. Someone actually told me growing up that if you have sex with someone, then that you're basically having sex with that person and that person you've chosen for the rest of your life. And I'm like, what? And that's biologically ridiculous. But like all those people, they're still there. And I'm like, no, they're not. That doesn't make any sense. Virginity does not make me any less of a person.
Right. Or any more of a person, right?
Any more of a person. And I don't think we ever had the purity ring. I know that you had, that was one thing, and that you had involved with. I don't think there was ever the purity thing in our church, but it was heavily emphasized that, you need to be this way. And I'm like, how many of you guys are? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, and it was girls, not boys necessarily.
Right.
The girls. So, yeah, that was another point of contention in my mind.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that's interesting to me, and I wonder if this is your experience when it comes to purity culture, and I don't know, there's the way that it teaches you to think about your body and sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
put it on
so
hold.
deep.
Just put it on hold until you get married and everything will be fine. That's like,
right.
No, if you have no idea how your body works, how are you going to please each other?
Right.
There's no way. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And the whole idea of this is like a dirty thing that you have to avoid until one day you flip a switch.
Exactly. And look, there is no switch flipping. You can't all of a sudden like go from absolutely nothing, like you won't have sex, so you will have sex with great passion. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Because it's not your past partners who end up in the room with you, it's those pastors.
Yes.
Right? Who have been yelling at you.
Yes. That's horrible, but yes. Oh my God. Yes, that is exactly right. And that's very disconcerting. I don't want anybody in the room there at all, except me and my partner. And to have the idea of everything that had been said and that still gives me the giblies thinking about it. So I that whole purity culture thing is like, come on. And my thinking has evolved to the point now where I'm like, polyamory, go ahead. I don't care. It's not me.
You're right. Yeah. It's not my body. It's not my people.
Not my body. It's not my body. It's not my people. It's not my choice. Have your own choices. Yeah. And so that's where I stand on that.
Which is a long way from your evangelical past.
Very much so. Very much so.
I mean, you had a lifetime of friends who you built up in that world. What happens with that for you? Like, have they all have a bunch of them walked a similar path as you, or do you just avoid the?
No,
why aren't you going to evangelical church anymore?
No, a lot of them, the ones that we're very close to, their paths have forked, shall we speak, into more liberal views. And I use the political term liberal views.
Sure.
Their churches have changed. They live in Massachusetts, and that's like an hour and a half from where I live. And it's not that long of a drive, but it's an aggravating drive in this part of the country. So we see each other, the close friends, maybe once a year. Friends that we had that moved to Colorado, we almost never see them. And I've lost track of the people I was close to in the church here that I went to. And it's not like we hate each other or anything, but
no, it's just you're in different places.
We're in different places, and I can't imagine bringing up these views to some of them and having them be, I would get an argument, I feel, as opposed to, oh, why are you feeling that way? So
I think that's an interesting thing. Now that you say that, I feel like as I was growing up in the evangelical world, I was sort of taught that faith was an argument to have with people.
Yes.
Right.
You have to convince them. And I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the pieces, I think, for a lot of people who are in this place of like things, deconstructing, that you come to this like, oh, it's not an argument. And that's part of, I think, what the complicating factor is with re-engaging in these kind of conversations with some of the people from your past, is that, like you said, it's going to be an argument and you want a discussion, right?
I would love to have, my mother was 95 when she passed, and I tried to have discussions with her, and she would argue with me up and down that being gay was just wrong. And I brought up my friend. I said, you're telling me this person who I love has to be by themselves their entire life? Well, I'm not saying he has to do anything. I said, yeah, you are.
Yeah,
you are. And side story, I had to she was on her deathbed, and I actually had to tell her that Trump won the election, so she would die. She died 15 minutes later. And it's a funny story. I swear to God, she's on her and she's out. Okay, we're waiting for her to pass.
Right.
And my sister goes in the kitchen to cook breakfast. She goes, I can't be here. And I'm sitting there and I looked at her. I said, hey, Ma, I said, Trump won. You can go now. And she did. And
wow.
And my sister goes, you lied to her? I said, absolutely. It was the day of the election. I said, absolutely, I lied to her. She was going to lie there hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
No, she had to go. It was time. And there was and I don't care. What's she going to do?
Right. So, well, backtracking to, your conversations with her about LGBTQ issues, mm-hmm. How did that affect your relationship with her? Like, obviously you guys didn't agree on that, but like, she's your mom too. And
she's my mom. No, I loved her. She was out of her mind, in my opinion, sometimes. But no, my love for my mother never changed. It did help that she lived in Texas and that I would call her on the phone. If mm-hmm. I lived close to her, I probably would have gotten to a lot more arguments with her. But mm-hmm. No, my love for my mother never changed. She had me late in life. She was 40. I was the mm-hmm. youngest. So there was that very close relationship there that she didn't have with the rest. And that didn't change. But no, she was not open to discussion. It was very dogmatic. So I just okay. It wasn't
just let it go.
Yeah, it wasn't worth a discussion. We would talk about other stuff.
Right.
That is, yeah.
And she didn't bring it up.
Oh, she would bring up stuff all the time. And I'd be like, Mama, you listen to those crazy right-wing people again? No, I said, look, tell me you're not listening to Alex Jones. It would be those sorts of things. I said, when you start listening to Alex Jones, I'm going to call in the cops, that sort of thing. But no, she did. She listened to some really stuff. When we were cleaning her house out, I found $500 worth of freeze-dried food under her bed that she was buying for the
prepping.
The prepping thing. And I'm like, you're 95. Why would you be prepping? And what really made me angry was this was someone taking advantage of old people. You need to have this. Yep. And that further pissed me off that you're identifying with evangelicals and you're doing this.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing. Yeah. Got it.
So it sounds like for you, as I'm listening, there was an aspect of your deconstruction that also, I don't know, motivated might not be the right word, informed by or sort of pushed further by the sort of the connection between the evangelical movement and the Trump movement.
Yes, that was that was the icing on the cake. Uh-huh. I think for years I had been like, this isn't the way I believe, but what do I believe? Mm-hmm. And you hide things in your mind and you leave them there going, that doesn't make sense. You put it in your mind. That doesn't make sense. You put it in your mind. That doesn't make sense. And you just kind of push it aside because, ineffable. God's ineffable.
Right.
And it just got to a point where everything all at once, it was like an avalanche of, okay, I can't do this. So I can't say it was sudden, but it seemed sudden.
Yeah, there's the
straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing.
That phrase that it happened over years and years and all at once.
Exactly. I'm glad. Hopefully other people have that years and years and then all at once. But literally the breaking point, Dan crying.
Yeah.
That something that had been pounded into my head for years. The Bible is univocal. I could finally let that go.
Yeah.
And from there, I was able to look at other things.
So in the evangelical movement, in that world, the Bible is everything.
Yes.
Right. What did it feel like when you realize that, like, wait a second, my relationship to the Bible is changing?
Oh God, I remember reading one particular pastor's Bible, And I thought, okay, he says this here. I don't know what that means. I look at the footnote and I go to the footnote and I go to the other verse. And he had this loop where he didn't answer the question. And I'm like, that's useless. So I have found that over the years, the stories in there speak to me about flawed people.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is awesome. I can take the flawed people. I think David's an absolute bastard. Whereas before it's like, David is the hero of the... No, David's a bastard. David's an absolute horrible human being. And they basically
a man after God's own heart.
A man after God's own heart. They whitewashed him. And
no, for sure.
Yeah, my husband has told me over the years, he goes, you're like David. You're a person after God's own heart. And I said, David was a bastard. You really want to compare me to him?
Please never say that.
Please never say that. So we laugh. And I said, look, that's because whatever you're saying there is that I am not a great person. Mm-hmm. I understand that. So I go to God going, here I am. I'm not great. This is where I am right now. And I am fucking angry.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Another one I can think of, Judah and his daughter-in-law. Oh my God. Lot and his daughters. It's like, what is this?
Right.
And why? You certainly don't teach this in Sunday school. But as an adult, you're reading this stuff going, oh my God, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. And I was kidding.
Yeah, let's paint our children's Sunday school class with the images of a genocide, right? All of the Noah and or xenocide, actually, really. Yeah.
Noah. Here's Noah going off on his boat, and they're like, everybody died, kids. They're all dead. They're all dead, kids. Dead, dead, dead. Everybody's dead. And you're not taught that. It's like the animals, 2 by 2. No, they're dead. Everyone's dead, and God started all over again. Yeah. And just horrid. And you wonder why that's in there.
Yeah.
Why are these stories in there? And, over time, I'm like, okay, whatever the author meant by putting it in there isn't anything like how we're reading it, because the cultural context is thousands of years.
Right.
Before, I would be surprised if we could relate to the thought processes because the culture was so different. So God only knows why the whole Judah and his daughter-in-law story was in there. But I look at all that and go, while those stories are very interesting, they don't have anything to do with my faith in a creator.
Right.
And sometimes I think, is there a creator? I can think that. It's okay to think that. Did everything evolve? Okay, maybe it did. I don't know.
How does it feel in this space that you are now to say out loud on a podcast, right? Maybe there isn't a God. Maybe not. Like what's that experience like?
If there's not, okay, then I am going to live my life the best I know how with the information I have.
Yeah.
If there is, then I'm going to live my life the best I know how with the information I have. And I have the feeling if there is a God, when I get there, wherever it's going to be, he's going to be laughing hysterically. Like, what in the world were you thinking here?
Yeah.
You finally got to a place where, love other people. It took you how many years? And it's like, well, it's okay, man. Some people never realize that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are other people out there who are like, maybe there isn't. Maybe there is. Maybe there's a bunch. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
So,
no.
I mean, what would your evangelical, 20 years ago, if you found yourself on this podcast, like, what would you have thought?
Oh my goodness. 20 years ago, I would have gone, that's not me. More than likely, that's not me. Well, how old am I? I'm 58. So 20 years ago.
38.
Oof. I probably would have been like, some of those questions that were lurking there would have been like, oh, you've come that far. Not sure if I would have listened to myself.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020.
For sure.
And I have no problem being on a podcast telling the entire world.
That's amazing. So here's a question. I'm sort of beginning to shift into future mode, but in order to do that, my experience is we've got to sort of mind the past for a second. And so I'm curious, when you look back over all the time that you've spent as a spiritual person, whether you were, just pushing down all the doubts and questions as an evangelical, or whether you are now in this more open space, what can you find places, moments, times, things you did that you say, I actually really, like, I know it was crazy and it's weird to say this, but I had, like, in the evangelical parlance, it would be like, I experienced God there. But maybe in this moment, you would say, like, I experienced transcendence or whatever. Like, are there places in your past? I'm curious what it was that you were doing where you had that experience.
All right. So I had been at a very low point in my life due to some circumstances that I'm not going to get into. And I remember walking down the street going, something just fell. I can't do this, God. I can't do this. And that moment, something snapped. And it's like, yeah, you can't.
Wow.
And from that point on, I was able, like, okay, you're not going to die.
Right.
Your sin, your mistake is not going to kill you. You will live and you will come out of this.
Wow.
And then for a period of about a year, there was just a time where it felt like there was just this bubble over me where nothing was going to bother me. It was like wax. Nothing was going to get in. You were going to heal, or I was going to heal. So in that time, I would say yes, that particular moment was an epiphany, an enlightenment.
Right.
And that over that year, I would say there was some sort of something keeping me in a bubble so I could survive.
Wow.
Yeah, that particular. And then I was thinking something, this is freaky.
Okay, great. I love freaky stories.
This is freaky.
Go. Spill the tea.
I'm sleeping. I wake up one night and I'm awake. I sit up and I look over at my husband, and I told him this. I said, anybody else is going to think I'm nuts. And I said, there's some weird grayish foggy thing over you sucking out your breath. And I went,
wow.
And this is when he was sick.
Yeah.
And I know it. I wasn't sleeping. I mean, I was up and awake, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And so that was like the opposite experience. That shouldn't be. So that could have been a visualization of me seeing him being ill and the good being sucked out of him. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that was another sort of spiritual experience on the opposite end of the experience.
Like a negative spiritual experience.
That I can't negate. I don't see demons behind every door. I don't see angels on every corner. But those two experiences, I would definitely say, were sticking places in my life that I still remember. Lots of stuff. You go to church, you just don't remember. But those were not in church. They were in my life.
Yeah.
And those definitely, those two things. There's more, but those are the main things.
Yeah. Are there places that you feel like, I don't know, just sort of like inherently centering spaces, or places where, I don't know, you feel more receptive to spiritual enlightenment, however you want to call it? Like, are there places that you like? I don't know. Most people, my experience is most people can say, you know what, like I want to go in the woods, or there's this like actual space in a church building that like is meaningful for me, or all these.
When I'm out on a lake in a kayak and I'm sitting there and it's just like, I can breathe. I can sit there. I can watch the loons. I can see the sun. And it's just remarkably centering. And you're like, nobody's out here, or there might be people, but they're not bothering you.
Right.
It's just me and my thoughts, and it's okay. I would say those are probably my most centering moments, that I can be out doing that. And I have a limited time to do that in the freaking snow. But I would say that's my favorite space. And you're going to laugh. I also have chickens.
Great.
I have this obsession with darn
like
chickens.
Backyard chickens.
Backyard chickens. So if
that's
I go
amazing.
Hanging out with my chickens and I'm feeding them and things like that, that's centering. I don't know why. There are these things.
I have a good friend. Her name is KB. She might even be listening to this. She has backyard chickens, and same thing. Yep. It's great. There's something about whatever it is, little animals, little nature.
These things that don't love you at all. Okay, there you go. If I compare it to God's experience, I feed them, I water them, I give them shelter. They have everything they need, and they're still like, I hate you. So... And sometimes there'll be a couple of them like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, you can touch me. And I kind of think like God's like, God, you are all backyard chickens. You were just hopeless.
You were all backyard chickens. So
not sheep, backyard chickens.
No, right. No, backyard chickens. That I love that. That's even better. So you were in this really, it feels like a really good space right now. What do you feel like? What's next when you sort of try to run the clock forward? What are you looking for? Are there holes you like feel like, oh, I really wish I could do this or that? Like where along the terrain ahead of you feels like, oh, I really wish I had this, or thought, or kind of understood this, or whatever.
I don't know if I necessarily want to understand anything more. What would be nice is the one thing that I thought was kind of cool in the evangelical church were these small groups. You would get together with people, you would hang out, and you would talk. In that space, it wasn't necessarily safe because you couldn't bring up things like, hey, what if there's more than one God? But the small group of having people coming into your house, hanging out, and just chatting about where they are. In their current spiritual walk and being safe would be great. To know that there are other people in my area, in my community, that are seeking the same way I am. And that, I don't know, everybody would come in one night and go, this is the way I'm feeling. I'm sharing. I'm burning sage in my house to get rid of evil spirits, whatever. Whatever would be enlightening. It would be nice to have someone just say, this is what I found. I like this Buddhist tenet. It doesn't have to be, I wholeheartedly believe in this one particular thing. That would be great.
I know exactly what you mean. This is when I think about my evangelical past, the small group. It was an unsafe small group setting every time, but like there's something about that I wish I had that piece. And it's actually, in fact, it's why it's one of the things. It's not the same as being in the same space with people, right? In the actual same physical space with people. It's one of the things I love about our skeptic pastor Discord community.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because like you'll have somebody talking about tarot, you'll have somebody talking about Buddhism, you'll have somebody asking about like the book of Revelation. And then in another channel, they'll be like, my life is coming apart. I need people to just
hold
be
that
here
space
with
for me. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah. And I like that. I'm on Discord. It'll be like, oh, I haven't been on there in a while. I'll get back on there because I have so many other freaking things going on.
Yeah.
But I get on there and I'm like, okay, there are other people who are in this space. And that helps. And one thing that came out of COVID was this. I'm sitting here having a video chat. Right. I've done my last 5 years of work doing everything via Zoom conference.
Yeah.
Even that would be amazing to have a group of people. Hey, we're all going to get together and you have to do this and you know, for once a week, or not even once a week, once a month.
Right, once a month.
People, that everyone felt safe, and you know, there could be discussion and be like, well, I think this. Are you sure? That would be fine. But yeah, the Discord's great, and I'm glad that you started.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. And so, you know, the other thing that when I'm hearing you, you've had this like positive experience when you're walking around outside screaming at God. You have this, sort of sense of like this holiness that exists for you in the middle of the lake.
That's making me cry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I hear this like ability to connect with God outside for you in a way that's, I don't know, really beautiful. And like, I wonder how you can build on that as you're continuing forward in all of this. Like, I love TikTok and I love screens and all of the things, but like, I have a friend who they have started this thing where their idea is to have like a walk. And this is not what it in the evangelical world. I remember people saying this, but a walk with God, right?
Okay,
but not in the weird way.
Not in a weird way, man. Just
they have this like thing where they are going to go, and they said, you know, sometimes I'm walking and I'm just going to think about something, or sometimes I'm just going to act like a crazy person. I'm going to go somewhere there's not very many other people. I'm just going to talk. Right, I'm going to allow the universe, God, whatever the hell is out there, and we're just going to have a conversation, and I'm not going to expect to hear anything back, but there's something about like outside verbal processing for them.
Yes. And I'm in my house alone. I talk to myself.
Right.
This and this and this, and how can you do this? I do like going outside, sitting on the patio, taking walks, that sort of thing.
Talking to your chickens.
Talking to my 3 chickens. In the wintertime, the snow, I love. The snow will come and I'll be like, yay, to go outside and just stand and listen to it. And that hissing sound.
Yeah.
That's another thing when there are no snow plows, there's nothing. And it's just, that's the same sort of feeling that I would get on the lake. It's just centering. Maybe silence is a motivating factor because there's just noise all the time. The idea of actually going to like a retreat where you got to be silent the whole time sort of appeals to me. I want to talk. But then I can't yell at God, so that probably wouldn't work.
Yeah, you can just alternate, right? Yelling at God and
screaming at God, and
tomorrow we'll do a silent walk.
Yes, nothing is consistent in the way I do things.
Right. Wait, listen, it sounds like par, right? For the human experience.
That's right.
Any amount of consistence over time seems to be externally imposed on our perception of things.
Yeah.
But Michele, thank you so much for doing this. This was wonderful. It was so much fun to get to talk to you, and
I'm glad.
I'm just so grateful for you for you spending all this time with me.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed myself, so thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place, okay? We'll see you next time.